Welcome to Everyday Woman. All of our fans out there on Facebook know that we recently had a contest looking for a guest co-host, and we don't discriminate here. So our contest winner who won the most votes on our Facebook contest is Mir Najibi here. He joins us today. Thanks so much for being here, Mir.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Welcome.
So how did you find us, and what made you apply to be a co-host?
You know, I saw the ad, and I've known Yolando for a little while now, and I just thought to myself, well, as long as there's no objections, you know.
We don't discriminate. We don't discriminate here.
I thought as long as there's no objections, why not? It's something different, and I think I'm level-headed enough to where I could bring, with all due respect, a different dynamic to the show that you probably don't have yet, which is okay. But I just think it's something sometimes I think you need a male's point of view on something, or it'd be nice to have. I hope I'm right in that assessment.
We're going to see in a few minutes.
So it's just, I thought it was kind of bold, and I kind of relished the challenge. I think I'm level-headed enough to where my thoughts on things can provide some nice insight for all your listeners.
So what is it about Everyday Woman that you really like?
I like how the objectivity of the whole thing. I like how you tell things the way it is. There's no sugarcoating. There's no biases. I mean, regardless of the issue, regardless of the gender that's involved, you tell it how it is. You're very straightforward, and that's what I really like. I think you have too many shows out there where people just want to hear themselves speak. People just want to, they're not open-minded about it. Yeah, and I like the fact that you guys can just be open and honest and tell it how it is. There's two sides to every story.
So what did your friends think that you were applying for a contest to be a co-host on Everyday Woman?
They said,
did they think you weren't so logical then?
They said, one, you must be very brave, and two, do you want to get slapped? What if you say the wrong thing? You might have a bunch of bruises on your face.
There are no wrong things. We're very civilized here.
Trust me, looking at all these beautiful ladies, they wish they were sitting there today.
I gotta say, I'm a very lucky guy to be sitting here in front of all the lovely ladies. So, I guess, every guy can dream,
So what are some of the topics that really speak to you?
Well, some of my topics?
Yeah. What are topics that really you want to hear more about?
Appearances, how we carry ourselves, do's and don'ts. I think body language we give out. I think a lot of men and women miscommunicate with each other. There's that, well, why does he always do this? Or why does she always do that? And I think there's a lot of assumptions, and I think we got to really counter to see what the source of the problem is in a lot of these situations, to see, to get some answers and provide some more
So what could women do better, in your opinion? But how could we be better towards, what you're talking about with men? What would you?
I guess I had this one coming. I think again, communication is very vital. I think
it's very important.
Instead of accusing somebody, instead of accusing, why don't you do more of this? Why don't you do more of that? Why don't we see why they don't do it? Why don't we just kind of ask and see what the problem is? Maybe it's me. Sometimes I think if you're nicer to somebody, they tend to respond more. Got to kill them with kindness. If you're always nagging at somebody, nobody's going to want to cooperate, regardless of the sex or the gender.
Well, communication is the key. It really is to any relationship.
Right.
It really matters, and even with men have to be communicated.
They do. They do. Some of us men, we're stubborn, we're pig-headed. Some of us, we take.
You said it, not us.
Exactly. Don't give away the brotherhood card right here. Okay?
Some of us are. I think I'm in the minority. That's why I'm here.
There you go. Well, so as a man, you're watching are you watching a lot of talk shows out there?
Few and far. There's a couple of them I don't mind watching.
What do you like out there?
Who do you like?
I don't mind The View sometimes. I think sometimes they get a little bit much. You see egos collide. I like The View. I like Good Day LA.
Do you like more of a? I'm sorry. Do you like more of a political type? Genre
no, not so much. Just a variety show about things that have entertainment. I think too many political shows, there's too many biases. Right. I don't think they're objective enough. I like the ones that can just tell it how it is, and from both ways, regardless of the issue, regardless of who's involved.
Regardless of the position.
I think there's too much hypocrisy on TV, and that's what bothers me. You have too many people who, it's okay for this person, but not for that person, and I'm not a big fan of double standards.
Well, you have come to the right show.
Exactly.
You have come to the right show.
And good things can happen to you, too, if you become fans of our Facebook site with Everyday Woman, and we'll be back with more.
Stay with us. We'll be right back with more Everyday Woman.
Welcome to Everyday Woman. We are bombarded out there with so much information and unique situations. It's hard for us to know how to make the right decision, how to choose between right and wrong. So I'm going to open it up to all of you. What is your process in deciding between right and wrong? I'm going to start with you, Stacey.
Well, I think my particular process is I don't ever want to go to jail.
That's a tough one. That's
And
a tough
because
one.
I don't want to go to jail, I borderline on right. But I think oftentimes people make decisions really based, I was being committed, but if they think they can get away with it. And so we push the envelope just enough. You think about children, and even it does, just enough, I won't get caught. Unfortunately, though, you can choose the action, but you cannot choose the reaction. And I think that's where we have to really dwell when we start talking about
I think a lot, you know,
making
what
decisions.
plays into this too is emotions.
Yes.
That's true.
Emotions have a lot to do with our decision
Yes.
making. And I think that really, you know, whether it be an adult or a child, I think emotional, you know, the emotional feelings that you have certainly can make you do the right thing or the wrong thing.
Yeah, and because of the emotion, I think that's why it's important to probably like be spiritually connected somehow, whatever that is for
Yeah, very
people.
much so.
Amen.
Yeah. Holy, no, it's like, and to have like a mentor, you know, someone that has kind of lived life and that you can kind of follow their pattern of decision making as kind of like a guide or a blueprint, you know.
But what about Mir? Let me tell you, let me ask you, if you knew you could get away with something, but you knew it was kind of the wrong decision, what would be your process in deciding if you were going to do it or not? If you knew you'd get off.
Right, no, fair enough. I think kind of echoing what everybody else said, it just kind of comes down to if the risk worth the reward. You kind of ask yourself, you know, am I going to feel better about myself if I do this? You know, I think it's always very tempting to do the wrong thing if it benefits you. I think that's just human nature. You know, we
Right.
see some things, you know, oh, a few more hours to my timesheet at work. Nobody's going to notice, da-da-da. I mean, it could be little things, but at the same time, no matter how little or big it is, it's still the wrong thing to do.
But let me ask you this from the male perspective, because sometimes there's this notion that men make decisions based on facts and women make decisions based on emotion. Right. Do you subscribe to that?
I subscribe to...
Or do any of you guys?
I can only speak for me. I make decisions based on, is this worth it? You know, am I going to like what happens to this? Is it worth the possible repercussions? Is it worth the possible consequence? You know, am I ready for the possible consequence?
Well, let me ask you about that quickly, because, you know, every night I stay up way too late. Every night I know it's the wrong decision. I know I'm going to pay for it the next day, and I still do it. You know, I make the wrong decision.
By staying up late?
I do, because the next day I'm just tired.
Some
It's worth
things
it.
are
Yeah,
worth
it's
it.
worth it
Some
for
things
you.
are worth it. I tend to be a night person a lot of the time, and it's like, oh, I'm going to get up, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. All of a sudden, 2 p.m. you wake up, and you're kind of like, it's a little irritating. I think it's just, like I said, no matter what it is, you just got to ask yourself if it's worth it. A lot of times we tell ourselves it is to make ourselves feel better. Whether it be, you know, should I run that stop sign? Or whether, should I have that extra piece of chocolate
And
cake?
that's the one I was going to talk about for women. That's the decision. Should I eat? Or, you know,
No,
should I eat?
You should eat. You know, we all
Should
should
I have
eat.
that extra piece of whatever,
Right.
you know? And I would say for myself, there's been plenty of days when I said, it's worth the consequence.
Right.
You know, we do what feels good. A lot of times, if it feels good, we tell ourselves it's worth it.
Right.
But we don't
Now
know
what
the
if-
consequence.
You
What
have
if-
to, you know, you have to reward yourself sometimes with things. So, I mean, you know, there's a feeling of a reward. But again, you have to look at yourself in the mirror in the morning.
Right.
And again, like you were saying, you know, is it worth it to
Right.
do that?
But what about if you're forced to be in a situation though? Like if you find your girlfriend or wife cheating, then guys get emotionally charged, you know, and then it usually
true.
goes
That's-
on.
I'm
They're not
okay.
usually
Right.
logical in that
But
instance.
that's a whole different spectrum, though, because
there's
whoever
still-
It's
cheated,
still, you have to decide right or wrong.
you have to decide, is it worth staying with them or not? But you're not the one who
Right.
did something wrong. It was the other person. So they have to decide, can I stop being unfaithful?
But in that instant though,
And
like
that
if you
instant,
catch,
you're hurt,
It's
you're
hard.
angry.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, what
Sure.
about all these instances on the other end? You know, so many people are cheating and they think they're not going to get caught, but more and more people are getting caught, but they still do it.
Well,
Why do
then-
we still think we're not going to get caught?
but then there's the
You know-
definition of cheating too.
Right.
That's just an example of somebody, that's just a pig. I'm sorry. Male or
Yes.
female,
So you're
that's
trying
just
to say,
dirty. That's
so you're
just
trying to
dirty.
say that all men don't cheat then?
No, all men don't cheat.
All men don't
Right.
cheat. I got a good one.
I think
got
they
it.
do.
I got
I'm sorry.
I've
I
never
beg to
cheated.
differ.
I've never cheated.
You know,
I've been in a relationship over 2 years. I haven't cheated.
Very
I
Is
can
that your
actually
longest
say that.
relationship?
It is actually.
Oh, okay.
Well, you're a
Very
keeper.
good.
You're a keeper.
The one who's not the pig.
Sometimes I don't know if she feels that way.
All right, well, it's always a good decision to tune in to Everyday Woman, and we'll be back with more.
Stay with us. We'll be right back with more Everyday Woman.
Welcome back. We've been talking a little bit about people who cheat and make the wrong decisions, but more and more you're hearing stories of people actually making the right decision and doing good. Are people becoming more honest, do you think?
I think that people have.
We'll get back to you on that.
She's like, no. Say no.
There are some good people out there.
What do you
That's
think?
what I think.
Minority.
You're like, is it a trick
That's the
question?
minority.
Here's what I think is happening. I think people have always been honest. I just think that now the media is starting to get away from all the negativity and show honesty. For example, there was a young man who was in college. He went to the ATM and he said he put his card in and the machine was like, and $1,800 came out. Now, the interesting part about that, he said he struggled. He didn't turn it in immediately, right? That good and right or wrong. But he took it home and he talked to his dad and his friend said, you know what, you really can't keep that. And so he took the money back. And I applaud him because he's a college student. You know, he could have bought a lot of top ramen with $1,800.
Absolutely. Right.
Or other stuff, but yes. I mean, is it more? I mean, with that decision, I mean, is it more that you know, with the ATM, the bank's going to get you at some point, so I mean, they're going to find you out.
Well, here's a great example too. There was a firefighter recently at Christmas time. They did a big donation, a big drive with clothing and household goods and things, and he happened to find a diamond ring. This diamond ring was over $50,000.
Wow, J-Lo lost her ring. What happened?
I lost my ring.
He dropped her ring in the bag. And you know what? He picked it up and they went and they sought this out through the media to find the woman, and it was returned.
Did she not notice that she was
She
missing?
was looking for it, but she thought,
gotcha.
you know,
Quite
she
a
could
rock
have
to
dropped
lose
it
sight of,
anywhere.
isn't it? You know, it's
She
just
had
like,
no idea it was in the donation bag.
My finger's feeling
Right.
lighter.
No,
all of
no,
a sudden.
she knew she lost
Yeah.
it, but you know, it was the good-hearted
Did I lose 5
person
pounds?
that
Absolutely.
said, "I'm going to return this to this person. They are missing this.
I'm
They're-
not going to go home
Right.
to my wife and be.
And you know, I mean, that was the good thing is
It
they
was
did
the right
the
thing
right
to do.
thing. The conscience came up, you know, and
But let's
prevailed.
talk to you, Cinderella. You're not buying all this good news,
You
right?
just
A
laugh
lot
the
of,
whole time.
well, I just have a lot of different opinions because I just like in the other discussion we're talking about that people usually do what's best for them by human nature, you know, and so I think that the right and wrong is kind of subjective because depending on what circumstance you're in, if you're in a certain circumstance and let's say you're starving and you haven't eaten and whatever, you know, and then you find that money, that's going to kind of have an effect on your decision, no matter what anyone says. Not unless you're holding yourself to a higher standard, but I'm just
Right.
saying by normal, you know, depending on the circumstance, a lot of time we don't know what situations we're going to find ourselves in.
Well, okay.
Okay.
To your point, because there was a gentleman in the Midwest who he was homeless and he was on his bike and he found a backpack and it had money and he took it back to the tool store and so they gave him a little reward. Now, clearly, to your piece, he could have kept that money. So you're right. I think there's something intrinsic in individuals,
Right.
regardless of their circumstance. They're willing to hold themselves to a standard. An acceptable standard.
Yeah, and I just think the majority of people, I mean, I think those are rare instances. I think the majority, like, I'll take that money. You know, that's the majority of people.
Exactly, and that's
you
not
know,
reported.
yeah.
You didn't hear that
I
story.
think people are a lot more honest than we tend to give them credit
I
for.
agree.
We just lose sight of it sometimes because
so much
we see and hear so much cynical things in the world,
Right.
in the media, and it can be very depressing. So that's where you just kind of have to tune it out and be like, I don't want to hear this right now. But I think when we least expect it, the honesty in people does come through.
Well, I know for myself, I the other day I went to the store and I put my things to the item and she didn't charge me for an item and it was under the bin. So I went outside and I was like, oh man, she didn't charge me dishwashing liquid. So I took it back in the store and I said, you didn't charge me for this. And you see this look? Everyone was like, what?
What are you doing back here?
Thank you, lady, for being so honest. And I told her, if I'm going to jail, it's not going to be behind dishwashing liquid, right?
But don't people justify it by saying like, well, that other time they overcharged me, so we're good.
Yeah, they
We're
justify
all
it
even.
saying, oh, that's my blessing. I don't
Exactly.
know.
Yeah, that's
Depends on
my
how you define it.
entitlement. Yeah.
Right. So
And I think that is what most of us do.
Yeah.
We think of other situations where we were wronged. So doesn't this kind of just
try to
No,
balance
it's
even out karma?
experience. Experience can be the best teacher. You're like, you know, I know how I felt when this happened to me, and I don't want to do that to somebody else. And a lot of times, I think when people are dishonest, they justify it in their head to make themselves feel better. Like, I deserve this because this happened way back when, and they know deep down they're only fooling themselves, but they do that just so they can kind of move on, and not let the guilt eat at them.
it's true.
All
Very true.
right. Well,
happens a lot.
that was definitely a fun discussion. So come back more for more.
Yeah, honest.
I love that comment. Come back more for more. I like that.
I didn't, but thank you.
Stay with us. We'll be right back with more Everyway Woman.
Welcome back to Everyway Woman. Now, parenting styles have been changing for quite some time, and there's a big debate out there about spanking. Is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? What do you think, Sandra?
Well, I think, personally, I don't like to do that, and my son is now a little older, but when he was younger, I found that, really communication is the key. I really felt that the timeout, helped a lot. Again, every situation is different. Parents are pushed to the limit. Parents are pushed, beyond the limit sometimes where they have to go to, something else.
But what are
understand.
those limits? Because sometimes I find with spanking, we talk about it like it's for the kid, but a lot of times it's for the parents who lose it.
Right.
And
you
that's the hard part.
you
It's
do.
not about, did this kid go too far? It's just how much patience did I have that day?
That's one perspective.
It's really just testing one's limit. It's like I'm not a big fan of spanking, though I understand it. I think it's really to each their own. It's one thing if you need to whomp your child one time because it just reached that boiling point where there's no boundaries being respected and they're not respecting mom or dad. But if you're going to hit them 3 or 4 times, all of a sudden there's bruising. Then all of a sudden, hey, you can't
that's
be
a whole
doing
nother
that.
thing.
Right.
That's the thing. That's where you got to draw the line. When is it too much? I mean, a simple whacking of the hand. Again, I don't like it, but I could understand it. I could be like, okay, it wasn't necessary, but unfortunately. But when you're getting people who are taking off their belts or finding a stick out in the yard.
That's the hard part because when you're angry, how can you have that limit? And what do you do? Have you used spanking?
Yes, I have. I have 3 children, and I grew up with spankings. There's no doubt about it. We have more education now. You are correct.
Right.
And so one of the things that spanking could do is put a fear in the children, and I don't want my children to be fearful. And so I do a lot of talking. I'm not afraid to resort to that. That's not my primary card, but if I have to go to spanking, and for me, it's what you're saying. It's not but it is, I need to do something that's going to get your attention. And what I found to be successful is if I put my hands on you, whether it's I grab you by the collar and pull you close to my face, or for my son, I get down and I can't tell all my secrets, and I get down and I get into his face to get his attention.
Right.
So there's a difference between slap him and beat him and doing something to get the attention. And as parents, let me just say this, I would caution us to not be fearful to parent. See, we sometimes equate different things with parent, and for me, whatever I need to do to make sure that they align with our home, I would do that.
Control is very important because it develops that child into adulthood.
Right.
And they have to know the fine line. You're not their best friend. Let's face it. You don't want to be their best
You're
friend.
friendly.
You're their mom.
Right.
You're friendly,
you're
but
their
you're not a
father.
friend.
You can be
Whatever
a
the
good
case
parent
is.
and be friendly, but you don't have to, go that route. Like you said, that's the last resort.
What do you think, Cinderella? I was
spanked.
Did you get spanked?
But I just think that people have a tendency to do the thing that's most comfortable. They fall into their comfort zone, like how they were raised and stuff like that. There's so much education out there that I think that there's various tactics. And a lot of times parents get caught up in the, they don't have the time or they're working or they're frustrated. I think that they can go and find other tactics than just time out or, those kind of things. And I actually was raised in childcare and actually owned my own childcare at one point.
Wow.
And one of the, with the kids, I just spent so much quality time with them and gave them a lot of their freedom, respected them as children. And so when I gave them the time out or anything, that was horrible for them. I didn't have to ever spank them.
But there's no one size fits all, and I like
there
what
is.
you're saying.
Yes,
You
you're
have
right.
to know your child.
Right.
Some child may require a butt spanking every now and then,
Absolutely.
where one
Some don't
is
care
only
about
words.
a timeout.
Right.
Right, timeout means
But
nothing
I
to
think
them.
a lot of parents out there really when they talk about spanking, it's like a sport to them, and that's the thing that I find disturbing.
No,
about
it
it.
is.
I
Again,
and
you
I don't
gotta
find
draw
they
the line.
I don't find they respect the child as a person of their own individuality. It's like, do what I told you, or I need your. I don't like that. Children.
It's a
should be
power thing
respect.
for
Yeah, it's a
some
power
parents.
thing. It's a power
like,
thing.
It's your child.
Yeah.
It's not an adult. It's not your equal. I mean, it's not gonna. Does it really make you feel better to give them a black eye or bust up their lip?
Absolutely.
And it
Well, hopefully it doesn't go that far. with
Yeah.
this. But that's always a discussion, and
It
that's why
does happen.
it's important for us to have this discussion. So come back for more great discussions with Everyway Woman.
That's true.
Stay with us. We'll be right back with more Everyway Woman.
Welcome to Everyday Woman, and we are talking about doing interventions with our friends who are users. Now, we're not talking about drugs. We're talking about friends who are users of us for our time, for our money, for, you know, our cars, anything. They're taking advantage of us, and how can we stage an intervention? Stacey, I know you have a situation.
I have a friend. No, but on my website, I had a friend who wrote in a question. Actually, one of our viewers wrote in question, and she asked us to help her. How does she have the conversation? She has a friend who talks about the amount of money she makes every time they go out. She expects her friend expects her to pay, and she comes to her house and just takes her belongings by making an assumption. And she wants to tell her it's affecting the relationship, but she doesn't know how.
Well, that's
But
not
how
a
is
good
she
friend.
allowed it to
That's not
happen?
a good friend to do
She
that.
hasn't said anything. That's
Yeah.
why it's allowing it to happen.
Yeah.
But that's easier said than done
is.
when you put a lot of stock on the relationship. See, it's deeper than just there's something there that's
Especially when there's a lot
growing
of
at the
emotional
relationship.
attachment. Sure.
Right.
Well,
No,
if you
I
have a long
understand.
history with someone, it's
Right.
hard to just turn your back on someone. So how can you do it where you're still respecting the relationship?
Well, in that instance, though, somebody's not respecting the relationship, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So how do I tell Sandra, who's my long dear friend, that's bothering me? I don't say it to her because I want her to still be my friend.
Right.
And I think subconsciously I still want Sandra to need me, right? But I want her to need me under my terms.
Yeah.
Do you
And
think
again, I think you have to be very open and honest about it. Don't hide it under the
Yeah.
rug. You have to talk about it.
Yeah.
You don't
because
wanna
it's
be a
going to get
pushover.
worse. It's not going to get better. It's only going to get you know, you're going to have to, you know, deal with her on an ongoing basis.
People will
like
do things as long as you allow them to do it.
Right.
So you got to
Right.
polite call them out, say, hey, you know, we need to talk, you know,
Right.
and kind of, it might sound cliche, you know, say, you know, I like you, you know, we're great friends, but there's something that's really been bothering me, and
Right.
explain it, see how they react, and you know.
Okay. So Cinderella, how does she say what? How does she get to that?
I think that you should just start with yourself and say like how it's making you feel. You know, say that, you know, just equate, you know, the relationship. I love you as a friend, but when you do this to me, you know, it bothers me, and I don't, you know, is there something we can do, or, you know, why do you do this to me, or I don't understand it, or
it's so
you
key
know,
to say how it's affecting
yeah,
you?
how it's
Because they
affecting
can't
you.
refute that.
Because sometimes people, like how we said, everybody's different. There's people who just have domineering natures about themselves, you know, and if it's been going on, the friend might not think there's anything wrong with it because they just come in, you know, it's their friend. Not until it's acknowledged in the thing, like, oh, I didn't know. You know, that's happened with me before with one of my friends. She was like, oh, I never knew I was hurting.
And
you
I
know?
think you can put yourself in that position.
Exactly.
Say, I wouldn't do that,
to you. Exactly.
I wouldn't take advantage of you.
Right.
Please don't take advantage of
Yeah,
me.
and then set a
You know,
boundary.
use yourself in
But
there
we're making some
first.
assumptions. We're making some assumptions that the friend cares, because I don't think that a person cares about another person who would just openly be so dogmatic about taking somebody else's stuff.
Right, that's
and the
just the
viewer
user.
said, when she said something like, that's mine, she's like, well, you can afford to buy another one. Who are you to talk about my finances?
Yeah, you don't know what I'm
absolutely.
going through.
So
but
maybe
Right.
there's an underlying reason why.
Jealousy.
Yeah.
Jealousy
See,
could be
there-
it.
And I
there's a
think
reason why.
if you're
Right,
open
yeah.
with someone, you give them, you
A
tell them
boundary.
once, you tell them twice,
That's right.
you let them know how, you know, where it's coming from you, and if after
give
a
'em the
certain point,
benefit of the
you let them go.
doubt.
Yeah.
Right.
But for men, let me ask it a little bit differently. I mean, you know, we're talking about a lot of emotions. Do men not get used as much? Are they more open of like standing
we
up for
get used.
themselves?
Sometimes you'll have a guy friend, you all go out there, have a drink or something, you know, all of a sudden check comes, you have that guy, he just kind of looks the other way and it's just like, oh,
I forgot my wallet.
Those are good skills to have. I don't know how they do that,
all of a
but
sudden, you know, so it's just with
So
the guys.
how do
like,
you deal with that? Have you dealt with that? And how would you handle a situation like
You know,
that?
well, with my friends, we just take turns. Let's say we'll go
Okay.
somewhere and I have my money. He's like, I got it. I'll keep that in mind. So later on, I'll capture something. Or if I see where I'm not drinking, but he's being very generous, and I'm like, maybe money's tight for me, I'll be like, you know what? I'm good. I'm good. I know he's offering, but I'm good because I don't know when I'm going to be able to get a chance to repay him. So that's what I
Okay.
personally do. It's like, you know, I appreciate it, but next time, you know, when I know I can return the gesture that day or soon, then I'll, you know, we can correspond. So I think I take turns with my friends.
So,
Okay.
Sehnita, are you saying that she shouldn't approach this from a point of emotion?
I think so. I mean, obviously that's there, but I think what Cinderella was saying was, you know, not just saying, well, why are you doing this? Why, you know, if you put it in their court, they're going to have justifications for it.
And they're
but
gonna
if you
get
say,
defensive.
this is how this is making me feel, then they have to kind of, you know, wrap their head around that. Oh, I'm doing this to someone.
Exactly.
So they are able to process it more, and then it's their decision to change
And
or
sometimes
not.
you just want to be honest with a person. Say, hey, let's do this. You know what? I'd like to, but you know, money's a little tight with me right now. You know, if they're your friend, they're not going to judge you. Slow up a little pride. Don't be afraid to tell me, hey, things are a little tight right now. I can't do that. You know.
But what if the person is conflict adverse, meaning they don't know how to engage in healthy conflict? How do we help them? I think that's the question. How do I even build up enough nerves to think about having the conversation? Because she's mortified that the friend has some type of a power over her that we don't know about.
She can
but
write
she's
a letter.
mortified.
She can write a
That
letter.
person-
There's
That's a
different
good point.
things. Like she does, you know, if she's scared of
that
confronting
person
her,
just
she can write
cares
a
more
letter.
about the friendship than the other
That's
person.
good.
Just-
A letter or a card.
She can write a letter.
Not
or a
an
card.
email where you send without reviewing it.
in all caps.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
spend my money.
Right.
But I think coming back to, again, just relate to the emotion of it, of why it's making them
Why it's
feel
hurting
bad,
them.
why it's hurting them. And then it's up to
The
the friend to
reason why.
decide if they want to keep hurting the friend or not. And, you know, maybe it's time
And
to
then
let
make
go.
sure she sets some limits. Like, you know, okay, if it happens like 1 or 2 times, then she's done.
Right.
You know?
Just slowly, you know, take a break from each other.
There's
Yeah.
a right, there's a
right.
right and
It's
a
always
wrong
good
way
to
to do
There
it.
certainly is, and this was a
Yeah.
lot of fun, a great discussion. We want to thank you, Mir, for winning our Facebook contest.
Very nice to be here. Hope to do it again soon.
All right, well, thank you for watching Every Way Woman.
This has been an Every Way Woman production.